province of Ontario. And in the audience we have the founding member, the founding father of the International Dark Sky Association, Dave Crawford. Dave, stand up.
We have a booth by the McLeod Auditorium over the next several days. We've got lots of material.
So we're now going to turn and talk to Peter about dark skies in Ontario.
Thank you very much. Those of you who may have seen the Globe and Mail this morning, we were very fortunate to get an article which deals with this new idea of the dark sky reserve on the front page. And this we're very pleased about. It's a project we've been working on for a year or so. Let me just give a bit of a background. I'm not an astronomer. I'm interested, and my wife in astronomy, but in a very casual way. Some years ago, we were members of the Royal Astronomical Society, and we then see the same names as Michael Watson and Dr. Chu, and of course Randy Allen. And it gave us an interest in looking at the stars and appreciating the skies. And we have a cottage up on Lake of Bays, which is in the Muskokas, and for a number of years we've been able to see those stars and to really appreciate it when we go up in the summer. But in the last 20 years that's changed, and it's changed quite dramatically. If we go out now on a boat in August to show people the stars, the ring of lights around the edge of the lake just washes everything out. And so that became a sort of a worry about, is there anything one could do? And with joining the International Dark Sky Association about 5 years ago, of course, we understood the work that Dave Crawford were doing and pioneering to try and propose ways of preventing this light pollution. So last year, I was fortunate enough to be at a conference which was called the Lands for Life Conference, put on by the Ontario government, which was dealing with the uses and management of all the Crown lands in Ontario. One of the things which there was on their agenda was looking at parks, trying to complete the park system. I went to one of those conferences, and at the round table I suggested, don't close the door now on parks. Maybe that in the future other things may happen which you want to recognize. And so somebody said, well, what do you mean by that? Well, the first point that came to mind was the underwater parks, because it's not until scuba was available that sort of thing could happen for the public appreciation. So the idea of underwater parks is a new sort of park system. And then I just sort of said off the top, what about Sky Park? We may have to find places in the future where people can go and see the sky and not be affected by pollution. And that idea sort of took off. And I went to my board, the Muskoka Heritage Foundation, and said, would you like to pursue this? Because our mission statement as an organization on this little pamphlet states that the foundation is committed to the conservation of the built heritage and the natural areas that defines the unique identity of Muskoka. They agreed, let's go for it. Now, what I'll do is I'll show you just a few slides which will give you an indication of our path through this and how we gradually got to the point where we are now, in which the province of Ontario have officially established that the Torrance Barrens is not only a conservation reserve, but it is also a dark sky reserve. See that all right? So here's the background. Again, this is who we are, and this is how we are. from the University of Colorado. What was interesting here was we get, because of the color, it's the measure I gather of radiance. Now, what's quite extraordinary is looking at Montreal. Look at that hard bird right in the center of the city. Look at Toronto, which is far less in its intensity. But what is also very interesting is looking at number 11 highway. Here's the highway that goes directly north, North Bay, Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, so that you have an idea right from that particular photo of that transportation, that major transportation route. When I asked the people at the University of Colorado when they took this photograph, they said, well, it's a composite which has been taken over a year, basically then into a 2-week period and taken over the different seasons. So it's a composite of all that together, which gets you an average. So it's an average. I think you will all understand that. It's 97, so it's fairly new. Now what they're hoping is, from what I understand, is that next year there'll be something where the resolution will be twice as good as this. Because when you get into, and I'll show you, the next level, you're beginning to see the pixels, and which are about 1 kilometer. Now, the Dark Sky Reserve itself, we found this area in the Muskokas, and it's just in there. On your right is Gravenhurst, Bracebridge above it, Huntsville above that. To your left is this area in which this barrens exists. Now what's interesting is if you look at that, there's another dark patch down in here. And this also is Crown land. And as a result of the Land for Life project, which I mentioned that the province has been dealing with for the last couple of years, and because the park system will be increased by about 6% to a total of 12%, that area to the south of the barrens will be included and will then become part of the reserve, because we will be able to assure ourselves that that view to the south, the development will be not be occurring in that area. So we're very fortunate about that occurrence. Now, just a few slides to show you the map. Number 11 highway, as it goes up north here. The Torrance Barrens is a tiny little piece in here, and that's just on Lake Muskoka, with Gravenhurst down here and Bracebridge here. And there, of course, is Georgian Bay. So you're in sort of cottage country. A little bit more of a close-up. There's the Barrens in yellow. In that area there, Lake Muskoka again. And this is this area that I'm talking about. This is a very up-to-date map now, which now includes the portion of that area which will be attached, in fact, to the Torrance Barrens and increase the size of the thing by about 4 times, which is actually marvelous. We didn't know that was going to happen. And just another map showing there's Gravenhurst, the Torrance Barrens. And then what the place looks like. Here's from the air in the winter. It's scoured, it was scoured by the glaciers and has this sort of striated effect. And when you come down onto the ground, you see that it's really quite wide open. The trees are not high, the soil level is not deep. So therefore, when you can get onto any sort of promontory, rocky promontory, without doing anything other than just looking, you've pretty well got a horizon around you which is clear. So you don't have to cut any trees. It's wonderful. Just go out there onto this huge granite. And here's one of the huge granite shelves. And as you can see there, there's a wonderful place here to set up a whole line of telescopes if you want. And you're just about above the line, just about the tree line, just about not high up, but just lifted slightly. So a few more of what this area Then, while we were doing this last winter, on our way back from the cottage country, we went into Bala, which is a little community just to the north of the Torrens Barrens. And there's a native art shop and fine art studio. And I saw this painting done by this young lad, Michael Robinson, who lives in the area. And you can see why I was interested. The allegorical figure here in the canoe, in the sea of stars, and the fish below. And I love what he called this, which is hunting the future. So I thought it was rather nice. Then back to this satellite photo again. Now, if I could just talk a moment about what's happening in the future, and I think this is also of some interest. We are members of the National Audubon Society in the U.S., and we get their magazine. The latest magazine that came out, the president was asked by a visiting person from Thailand what he thought the American continent, what the greatest problem was going to be in the environment of the American continent. And the answer to that was, what was it? I'll keep you hanging. I know it so well. Oh dear. The answer was habitat fragmentation. Habitat fragmentation. Now this is in terms of wildlife, the movement of wildlife. In order for wildlife that does move, and especially birds, is to have continuity in landscape areas. And what has happened in the recent past is this fragmentation is beginning to destroy some of those paths. Now, one of the big thinking ideas now is there's Algonquin Park. Just to the north in Quebec is La Vérendrye Park. Down here, this sort of dark blob is the Adirondacks. So there's now talk of connecting those two in what's called the A2A project. And environmentalists, biologists, and people from both sides of the border are already talking about wildlife corridors, corridors of darkness, where this can connect. And the even larger one, which is in British Columbia and in the northern U.S., which is called the Y2Y project, which is from the Yukon to Yosemite Park. And there's 2,800 miles of corridor, which they feel is necessary in order that the wildlife can still exist. So those sort of things are talking about taking away this fragmentation, and hopefully in the future, this is another challenge that we have. And finally, again, we greet you, the Muskoka Heritage Foundation, and we're delighted to be here talking to this august body, and thank you very much.
Questions? Michael?
Two questions. First of all, what is road access like? You're going to be hauling a telescope in. You have to, backpack at a distance to get to that rock.
Very, very good question. It's very easy. There's a road which is cleared in the winter time, so it can be used winter or summer. It's paved. There's a tiny little parking area just to one side. And the best viewing spot is about a 5-minute walk. And if you're there even at night, you don't have to worry because you're not in a bush. You're in very much of an open area. And you just reach this little promontory, and it's perfect. So you're about, as I say, a 5 to 10 minute walk from the parking area. So it means that if an astronomy group wants to go up, you're far enough away from where other people might be walking, so it can be relatively private. But at the same time, it's very accessible for people who would like to use it.
Follow up, if I may, obviously, the primary thrust of it is to keep a dark sky, and it may also be to keep it pristine. Have you thought at all about the concept in the future of people being permitted, for example, to build little observatories?
I think we would have to let the local community talk to that. At this point, the Torrance Barrens Conservation Reserve has no infrastructure at all, and in its management plan doesn't anticipate any. So we have no electricity there, no toilets, nowhere to buy anything. It's just open, but it's protected. And I think in a way, it's rather good that it's kept that way. We don't have to deal with it in infrastructure. Now, Michael Silver, who has been working with me and who helped to put this project together, is in the audience, and he has a question.
Well, I think I can help answer that last question. There's the area that's most accessible that Peter is talking about is more or less like downtown Torrance Barrens. It's where some of the trails start. There's some signage. There is this clearing where cars can be parked. And that's probably where most of the telescope viewing will take place. And it's been designed that way because it's an area where people trotting on the rock and whatnot, it's a minimal intrusion to the environment. The more sensitive areas are elsewhere. So it's actually the perfect spot for it.
Question up in the back.
Yes, congratulations on this fine piece of work. It sounded almost like a cakewalk. You didn't delve into many of the details of how you actually got this to happen. Was it a cakewalk or was it a fair amount of work? Did you have to convince a lot of people who were skeptical?
No, actually, we found that it was very easy. I was surprised. I've done other projects. I was surprised as how enthusiastic people were. For instance, the local community, if I can just back up a bit, the reserve itself is managed by the province. So they can look after what's happening there. But because of the surrounding municipalities, they're the ones that are in charge of development and what is occurring in those areas. The onus is on them to ensure that any future development respects that dark sky aspect. So we went, one of our other committee members, Russ Black, who was the former mayor of Bracebridge, a little town which is very close to Redmond, he developed a resolution. And as a matter of fact, I'd like to just, if I could, just read this resolution because I think it's extremely important of what it says and what they have agreed to do. And it says, be it resolved that the Township of Muskoka Lakes recognizes that indiscriminate outdoor night lighting has rendered much of Ontario's night sky unsuitable for astronomy and simply viewing our universe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Muskoka Lakes support the creation of a dark sky preserve within the Torrance Barrens Reserve. And further, that the Township, and this is the most important paragraph, and further that the Township of Muskoka Lakes promote